No is the freedom word. Hmm. What an interesting idea. And one that brings up a lot inside of my gut. I'm Rick from Thriving Now. I'm here with Kathy Bartuli from Thriving Now and the Intimacy Dojo. Kathy, how did it feel to say no when you were a child?
I didn't even consider saying the word no when I was a child. I usually resulted in my mother's head spinning around in multiple directions and multiple meltdowns, and you it was just not worth it. The consequences for saying no were so huge that and we ended up doing it anyway usually, or having to comfort someone who was supposed to be taking care of us. So no was something we avoided at all costs, and it really affected me a lot growing up because I didn't know how to say no to folks. I knew how to hint and hope they would get it. I would like make suggestions and like kind of, well, I'm not so sure. What if we did that? Like I would kind of talk around it, but I would never actually say no to anyone. And it meant I did a lot of things that I didn't want to do, including I remember I was 33 and I was on a date and we had a nice dinner. We were walking through the park and we sat on a park bench. And I was literally bent over the arm of the bench to try to get away from him as he was kissing me. And I couldn't say the word no. And so like he didn't hear no. He didn't pick up the fact that I was contorting my body to try to get away from him. And so I ended up doing things like he ended up kissing me for quite a while and I didn't like it or want it. Um, it just took away a lot of my power, my choice. And I think a lot of times I didn't even think about no inside my head. Like I didn't even want to acknowledge that I didn't like something because I felt I had so little power to actually to stop anything. So I would not even let myself know. And I remember when I first started working with Rick, he'd ask me things, what do you like? What do you want? And I'm like, how do you know that? How do you even know what you like if you've tuned yourself out of it for so long? And I had to teach myself. I had to do run experiments to figure out, oh, and a therapist like, well, if you don't know what you like, why don't you try a different type of eggs each morning? Like, because I ate the eggs whatever partner or person was close to me ate. If they liked omelets, I liked omelets. If they like scrambled, I like scrambled. And so I just every day for a week, I just made different kind of eggs and had to try to teach myself to notice what I wanted. And I think that all stems to the fact no was not part of my vocabulary. It wasn't a freedom word to me because it was just not a word I used. How
Yeah.
about you?
Well, I'm still in the energy, and I've been noticing in the chat, someone said I don't even think I could say no, and that's what I'm hearing from you
Yeah.
too. And it for me right now, I'm curious what what stops us from saying no? Like in your description, I heard the consequences um, were were really significant, and also you were going to have to do it anyway. So there wasn't freedom. 0 to 10, how free were you if somebody asked you or told you to do something or asked if you wanted an omelet? How free, 0 to 10, did you feel?
For me, yeah, like I'd love to see what people think. I felt like -10, like and one of the things I've noticed, I think that sometimes our parents, and I'm curious who else resonates with this, but my mom often seems like she's kind of mirror imaged her kid. Like we have mirror neurons in our head that identify parts of us. So like if we're really used to a car, our brain actually mirror images the car and it becomes ours. That's why people get so upset when someone dings our car because it's like feels like a physical assault. I think my mom never learned the difference and mirror imaged her kids because right now she's going through some hard times and she's like, your sister's never here. She owes me. I did all this stuff for her. I don't think she actually realizes we're not extensions of her in a way. So it'd be almost like saying no to her was like, would be shocking. It'd be like a hand all of a sudden, no, I'm going to do whatever I want and run away. It'd be like, ah. So I don't think it's intentionally mean. I think it's just like her brain has not learned that we're separate beings. So, so someone said I hate eggs. No way would I say yes. So yeah, I actually like eggs, but I was trying to figure out like what is my style? What do I like? And it was really hard. Um, and if this is bringing up a lot of emotions for you, like you had trauma, someone tried to get going to school, going to a hospital. Someone said as a kid, the no was at a 5. Just see if you can be gentle with yourself. This can be a really triggering topic because without a no, we don't have much power. We're at the whim of the people around us. And for many of us in the generations that are, we're not, people weren't as aware of consent. And there was a lot of force and a lot of manipulation and like this, that was just kind of normal. I'll spank you if you don't do what I want. I'll make sure, you want to see what no feels like. This is what it feels like. Um, so I think if we can just be gentle, you can do grounding exercises, take deep breaths. And if you need to like step away for a minute or ask to tap, we're really glad to work with you.
So we use, I'd like to pause here and lots coming up for people as we see in the chat and for me. Having a no inside of me as something that I have access to is so important. It's really been a driving initiative inside for my own personal well-being and thriving and safety, as well as with others. And I'm very aware that, a lot of people that we grew up with or that want something from us, they don't really want us to have a no. Okay.
That's
So
what we need.
we use EFT tapping. We have a new Learn EFT course, and if
Yeah.
you go to
Oh, I meant to bring the
thrivingnow.com,
book so I could show everybody. Oh, do you have it there?
I have the author
Version.
uh, review copy. It's right here. Um, so thrivingnow.com/tapping. You can sign up for our emails and get a free copy of the course as well. So we're not going to be teaching tapping, but you can follow along. You're muted so that you can repeat the words. You'll hear Kathy and I echoing back and forth, and that's a way that we do it as a group. And of course, you can say no.
You can
um,
change the words if you want to,
yeah, even though they would never tolerate me saying no.
even though they would never tolerate me saying no.
And part of me is still aware
And part of me is still aware
when people want something from me,
when people want something from me.
they don't want to hear no.
They don't want to hear no.
And I accept where I am
And I accept where I am
and these conflicts I feel in me.
and these conflicts I feel in me.
Top of the head. I want to feel free.
I want to feel free.
Eyebrow. They didn't want me to feel free.
They didn't want me to feel free.
Side of the eye. They wouldn't hear my no.
They wouldn't hear my no.
Under the eye. If this is true for you, I was punished for saying no.
I was punished for saying no.
Under the nose. And I'd have to do it anyway.
And I'd have to do it anyway.
Chin, what's the use?
What's the use?
How about why deal with the consequences
Why deal with the consequences
of saying no?
of saying no?
Under the arm. I am way too wise to think there aren't consequences.
I'm way too wise to think they're not consequences.
Oh, and that's a conflict for me.
And that's a conflict for me.
So I do want to feel free to say no.
Because I do want to feel free to say no. I think that's a really important point, Rick, is because there are consequences. If I say no to a friend that really wants my help, they may decide that we're not as close or we may have to clean up some things. If a friend is in really big need and I'm also needing to take care of myself, and I say, normally I'd want to be there, but I really don't have it for you. Some people don't take that well. They pull away. There can be consequences to saying no. The nice thing is adults, our prefrontal cortex is online and we're actually making choices for ourselves and we have the ability to clean it up with the right people. So the kind of people that want freedom. So like if Rick called me, it's like, I'm in really bad shape. I need help. And I told him no, I trust that while he might be disappointed, we can clean it up very easily. There's a real ease there. But some people there isn't. And maybe we have to train that in, or maybe we need to say, oh, that person, I need to put a little distance. Um, so I think there are consequences, and we're not saying it's freedom
You want
in
to do
the
a tapping on the
yeah,
consequences?
yeah, karate chop. Even though I want my no,
Even though I do want my no,
and I want lots of freedom,
and I want lots of freedom,
there can be consequences.
there are consequences.
If I say no to the doctor 3 times in a row,
If I say no to the doctor 3 times in a row,
they may not want to schedule with me again.
they may never schedule me again.
Top of that, if I keep telling my friends no, they may stop inviting me.
If I keep telling my friends no, they may stop inviting me.
Eyebrow. And I do want to be there for my friends.
And I do want to be there for my friends.
Side of the eye. No is powerful.
No is powerful.
Under the eye, there may be consequences.
There may be consequences.
Under the nose, but the consequence of never saying no
The consequence of never saying no,
means I never get to find me.
I never get to find me.
Collarbone, I never discover my freedom.
I never discover and claim my freedom.
Under the arm, and that seems like a really big consequence.
And that seems like a really, really big consequence.
Top of
I
the
don't
head.
like the way that feels in my body.
Top of the head.
I
I claim my freedom,
claim my freedom,
and I can actually deal with most of the consequences.
and I can actually deal with most of the consequences.
So just take a nice deep breath. I think that if we're noticing a pattern, like with a doctor or something like that, we'll talk about this later in the call. How can we find the yes? How can we find a way to moderate our response to it? And one of the most powerful things I think that we can realize is when we're little, and I see this with Rick with Adira, and I love using her as an example because so many of us love her photos and feel connection to her. Um, Rick and Jem are amazing at honoring her no and trying to explain things to her. I love how they parent. And there's times when they're late for an appointment or like she just doesn't want to she doesn't want to put on clothes today or she doesn't want to like get in the car. And little kids don't have a prefrontal cortex. Like she can't communicate well enough. They can try to explain to her, but there's things that they have to do. Like she has to, there's some things that have to be done, timelines that have to happen. I think that most of our parents weren't quite as kind and patient as Rick and Jem are. I watch how hard they work at this and how much consciousness they bring. Um, but I watched my niece take 2 hours to decide what blouse to wear. Like when she was 3 and she got them all out and she didn't want any of them. And she finally put that one on, didn't like it, put that one on. When we're little, our prefrontal cortex, our decision-making ability is very low. And our parents may legitimately, I mean, I love my niece and I'm like, fucking put something on herself because I didn't use those words, but that was what was in my head. So like, and I'm not raising her all the time. So there can be some impatience with people. And there can be like, like little kids will say no and sit on the floor or scream in the middle of the restaurant or whatever. So realize we're talking a little bit different. Little kids, we still want to honor their no and their boundaries as much as possible. But when we're over 25, our prefrontal cortex is fully online and there's a difference in our decision making. I think just important to throw that in there.
Even though my body remembers.
Even though my body remembers.
Times when a no didn't work.
Times when a no did not work.
When there was no room for a no.
When there was no room for a no.
And sometimes that is true.
And sometimes that is true.
How good. Sometimes that is true.
Sometimes that is true.
Eyebrow. There's no room for a no.
There's no room for a no.
Side of the eye. Not without really gross consequences.
Not without really gross consequences.
Under the eye. What do I do with that?
What do I do with that?
Under the nose. I accept that that's sometimes the situation.
I accept that that's sometimes the situation.
And I want my clarity.
I want my clarity.
Alone. I'm really tired of pushing myself with have-tos.
I am really tired of pushing myself with have-tos.
Under the arm. I'm really tired of not feeling like I could say no.
I'm really tired of saying, just feeling you can't say no.
Mhm. Yeah. I may be saying yes to staying alive
Maybe saying yes to staying alive
rather than say no.
rather than say no.
Mm. So
I think there's,
I just want to pause
yeah,
here just to, um, for me, there are things that feel like have tos. And if I stay stuck in the I can't say no here, um, it's very uncomfortable in my system. So for example, um, I may say yes in order to I may go along, even though it's not a yes for me. I may go along in order to save my life. That's kind of core survival. My primitive brain says, "Smart man." Um, I know that it's a no, though, and I know that I could choose to, and I can even imagine situations where I would not choose to self-preserve in a situation, as weird as that sounds. And sometimes with tapping, going back down to the primal, I'm they're gonna they're gonna hurt me, they're going to leave me, they're going to hate me, they're gonna cast me out. Um, you know, that tapping on those feelings, um, as part of this practice of reclaiming our no and grounding our freedom in the capacity to be able to say no. If I really, and let me give you a nuance here because I it feels like the time where it's alive in me. Um, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm exhausted and um, someone calls and says, "I need you. Come get me." Now, if it's a person I love who's on the list of people that actually will get through to me at 4 a.m. if they call, um, I can't imagine saying no. I could, but I can't imagine saying no to someone I love in those circumstances. What I've started doing for, ever since I found tapping is when I catch myself saying, I have to go help John, you know, where are you going? It's 4 o'clock in the morning. I have to go help John. I pause there and I say,
you
this
choose.
feels so important to me that I'm going to go help John.
Yeah.
Do you notice the difference? Have to means I am compelled. I am compelled by obligation. I'm compelled by even like what I stand for. There's nothing wrong. I'm not language policing, but for me, if I'm really clear, this is the person I am, this is the relationship that matters to me. No, I wish this wasn't showing up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And you know what? I am not going to say no. I can't imagine saying no. And I could, you know,
But just relabeling it, that is
but
very important.
redirecting the energy. I think a lot of what we do with tapping is not, sometimes it can seem like, oh, we're just changing the word. I'm offering these different directions. I have to pay my taxes. As soon as I do that, I feel sick to my stomach. My throat closes up. I'm aware that if I don't pay my taxes, there are consequences. I don't want those consequences. So what I would say is, I'm saying yes to being a citizen of this country, and one of the things that's a part of that is to file and pay any tax that's due. And I choose to um I could say no. I could be in the consequences of it. I could. And the freedom inside of me as I shift to, you know, I could say no here. No one actually has a gun to my head. It's not even at that level of survival. Um, and I've had to go through these things that remained as thorny have tos in order to feel much more consensual in myself and with others. Go ahead,
I
Kathy.
think that's really useful. And again, we'll talk a little bit about ways to find a yes in something, look for yeses. And one thing, I had a good friend come in town and they had taken a train. They were taking the train to see me. And I was told them I'd pick them up until midnight, but the train was super delayed and they were getting in at 3. And I was like, I'm really glad to pay for a lift, but I'm gonna go to bed. So I was like, it wasn't that they weren't in desperate need, like, there was a way, but I wasn't gonna leave them at the train station, but I looked for a different way to support them and help them feel cared about. I'm like, just I'll ring the doorbell, I'll sleep on the couch so I can let you right in, but I'm gonna get some sleep because staying up till 3 is not gonna be good for me. And someone shared, I think this is useful that someone said yes, about pet sitting and had a really bad experience where the person attacked them. And I think it's really painful when we're doing something, we think the agreements are clear, and often when someone attacks and starts, if I don't want to share a lot of details here, but um, kind of attacking character and pathologizing things, that's a bully. That's someone like, you must do what I want. And if you don't, I will just hammer you until you are so sorry that you ever existed. That's not a person I want in my life. And I've also, this may feel too soon for this particular share. It may be one of the best teachers you could have. I had this happen with early on. Was working with clients and I was doing people they couldn't afford. I had various therapists and things referring to me, and I would work with them for free on doing EFT. And I had one person I kind of went through like their background, but they never disclosed they were DID. They had multiple personalities. They never told me. And I think our third session, the middle of it, they're they switched personalities. They were suicidal. I'm 1,000 miles away. No contact information. I would have never worked with that person, especially at the level I was. Now I might work with them if I had a good contact with their therapist. I set different boundaries with people, but I didn't know that at the time, and it was horrible. Like I was there, like trying to talk them down. I finally got them calm, got their partner in line, but I was terrified. I was like, what is the consequences to this seems so huge. And like the consequences of some people like tearing you down socially as well. But from that, I pulled together, like with Rick's help, but I pulled together the grounding exercises from that because I wanted to have something really powerful to offer if someone really got in their primitive brain. And so I spent several weeks just diving and digging in and finding everything I could. And I had never found everything pulled together. I found suggestions, I found ways that the brain works, but now there's a lot more out there. But at the time, there really wasn't. So I used that fear and that pain as a way to kind of dig into myself and find a different solution. And I'm just thinking about this. Maybe there needs to be a written agreement. Maybe there needs to be boundaries that this is what I'm willing to do. And I don't know if that would help or not, but I try to use the angst of that to try to, what can I do to help myself be protected in the future and make sure that this doesn't happen again? So that for me has been helpful in kind of clearing some of the pain as well when I use it for, like, it definitely tapped a lot with Rick and with other people. Like I was scared to do another client session because like, I don't know what's going to happen. And I'm really glad I didn't run away. It was that particular person just hit a bad wall on something. And so now I ask questions a little more if I don't know the person when I work with them, as well. Like I didn't know to ask that. And they didn't disclose. So I don't know if that's helpful, but I do find that if I can, where's the weak point in this? What do I need to develop, learn, create so that maybe I can avoid this kind of thing in, in this kind of situation? Um, And someone else shared, I have fear around saying no to guidance, quote unquote guidance. And I really get that. Um, there, it can feel
What's
scary.
interesting is that, like, one of our concepts for thriving is discernment, and
Yes.
and guidance that's coercive to me is not doesn't fall into the guidance category. So this is where, I'm pretty clear as a freedom oriented person that, if I'm getting guided and I can't say no without being like what, bullied, punished, deprived, that's not where I tune for guidance. There's guidance out there. Let me tell you, you can sign up for people to tell you what to do, and they'll they'll threaten your well. If you don't do this, then you'll
Horrible human, slime on the floor.
I mean,
I
it's
don't need other people. I can do that to
the
myself.
tappings that I've ever done are people that have been told, well, if you don't do this, you won't survive past 50, or you won't, like, so part of this clearly goes back to boundary. I'm tapping a lot because this is hard. Like, I want to live in the world where, um if you say no to me, that I recognize in my whole being you're taking care of yourself, and that I feel free enough to get my needs met in some other
Yeah,
way.
I can't remember any time I've said no that you haven't said, like, you might say, "Hey, I'm disappointed that this is happening." Like, I was supposed to travel to see them and I didn't. Like, but it's been wholeheartedly like, I want you to do what's right for you. That's the opposite of a bully. We are allowed to have feelings. We're not a bully if we say, "Hey, I'm really disappointed and I want you to take care of yourself." A bully is like, "I trusted you, you let me down. Look what a horrible person you are." Like, that's manipulating. That's try to get you to change your mind against your own choice. And again, I think sometimes, like, I might say, "Hey, how about, you're not up to taking the train down. I'd still really love to see you. Um, what if I met you halfway in a car or something?" Like, we can look at solutions without being bully about it. But if they're not willing to take your no, if you're not like, I just kind of want to skate around the outskirts of that, because I think a lot of times we don't recognize people as bullies because
Mhm.
we are brought up with bullies. And so that seemed normal,
Yeah. Even though they're bullies,
even though they're bullies.
I know some.
I know some.
Some are even my relatives.
Some are even my relatives, and I have occasionally been one myself.
Mm. I choose to know my own freedom.
I choose to know my own freedom.
And if it's a no, it's a no.
If it's a no, it's a no.
Top of the head. If it's a no, it's a no.
If it's a no, it's a no.
Eyebrow. I choose to at least know that for myself.
I choose to at least know that for myself.
Side of the eye. I choose to at least know that inside of me.
I choose to at least know that inside of me.
Under the eye. I'm doing this because I don't want to get bullied.
I'm doing this because I don't want to get bullied.
Under the nose. It's not a yes for me to do it,
It's not a yes for me to do it,
Chen, and I don't want to be bullied.
and I don't want to be bullied.
Alone. And I may choose to do it anyway.
And I may choose to do it anyway.
Under the arm. There is freedom there,
There is freedom there,
even if it's sort of icky.
even if it's super icky.
Huh. I embrace that sometimes freedom is kind of sticky and icky.
I embrace that sometimes freedom is kind of sticky and icky. Yeah, I wish it was always very clear and easy that this is a yes, and this is. I had to get a crown put on the other day, and I did not want it. It was the day that it came. My appointment was. I was feeling kind of fragile that day. I did not want to go to the dentist, and they're really hard to schedule with. I really wanted to get this done, and I chose to go. But I also talked to Rick before, and I said after when I came home, I did some things comforting for. I promised myself, "Hey, I know this is tough. It feels like a hard day. How about we do this and this after that kind of comfort ourselves?" So there are things that we have to do, and we can choose. There are days I've called one time I did call into the dentist and I said, I'm not feeling well. And they're like, oh, it could be COVID, don't come. And it was actually an emotional thing. I didn't lie about it. I just was like, I don't feel really well today. And they like jumped to it and said, don't come today. I'm like, great. That's what it is.
Thank you for the freedom.
Yes. But I think we get to we're the discernment we talked about earlier, like guidance. It's like we're doing our best, and sometimes both things may be somewhat of a, our options might be both the kind of like me canceling on a friend is kind of a no, but me going might feel like a no. It's like, oh, there's not really a good solution. I hate to let my friend down, but I don't really have the psychic energy to go and deal with a lot of people today. Let me see. Okay, is there an option? Can I call the friend and say, hey, listen, I'm not up for a restaurant, but if you want to come here and we can just hang out quietly and have sandwiches, I'm glad to, but otherwise let's reschedule. And we're looking for more and more people that are cool with that.
Yeah,
And
that's really the our third thing that we're touching on already. What might be a yes for me. And again, feel the difference between I'm trapped and I'm trying to get out of this. Like, oh, I don't want to go to the dentist. What do I can lie to them. I like, there's this, I don't want to go. The emotional freedom part of it is I could say no. I don't want to. They're going to be pissed. They may not reschedule me and for a long time. They may punish me. And you know what? If it's really that much of a no, I give myself permission to say no. And now I'm going to explore the landscape a little bit more. Trapped, you can't explore the landscape. If you're trapped, I can't say no. That energy, you cannot explore the landscape. It will be more like what's my way um, of getting untrapped. I believe that acknowledging, like, oh, okay, I could say no, and there are consequences. And so, what could I offer? Um, what feels like my truth? I don't want to go, and can I without doing harm to myself? Yes, I could go without causing harm to myself. I don't want to go. It's not a, but I can go without doing harm for myself. No, if it fell into, if I go, I can feel inside of me, this would be harmful. There's no congruence in my body.
Mhm.
And this is the real skill part of it. That's why this is a real skill workshop. This isn't something that
cut and
we just
dry.
have a set of rules that you could, do this tapping script and everything will be clear. I no, 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 that does not feel like my truth. Yeah. But if I'm feeling like I can't say no, giving myself that, I feel more free. And then this, what might be a yes? I wrote about that in the invitation. What might be a yes for me? And you know that you're exploring the landscape if it includes a variety of different possibilities. Well, I know this person. If I lie to them, I already know what lie would work with them. If I lie to them about that, I'm no longer trapped. And it makes it easy to say no without the consequences. That's on my list. I don't like using that, but it's freedom. There are people that it's easier to say, I'm so sorry, this horrible thing has happened. And I'm, as much as I really want to be there, I can't be at this.
And I do think that, yeah, I like if you can tell the truth. You don't have to give all the details, but I think it's a good way to stand up for yourself and
Mhm.
acknowledge. I think there's a little bit of a trap in that sometimes we don't think our own desires are worthwhile, and so we'll make up something
That's why
bigger
I'm
that,
saying
yeah,
The
Yeah.
landscape is, and I'm using this. Look, I was punished for lying, and yet I lied. I lied at various times because I knew that to tell the truth, the consequences were
We're
not
getting in
something that I
trouble.
could. Well, it wasn't just getting in trouble. I told the truth at times where I would get in trouble, but like if the consequences were way too
Harsh.
much more than what I thought I could manage. Um, I discover today that I am willing um, to conceal with people that are bullies and that are these are not people that are close to me. Again, like right distance, right depth, the no of freedom. If I know that the only way to say no to someone is to make up a story, they are not going to be close to me. That's that's just one of the essentials for me. They may be family. I may see them at family events. They may be people that are part of our, part of a social circle. Um, especially if your social circle includes, events that are open to the public, you may find yourself around people that like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm busy that day. Oh, what about what next Sunday? Yeah, Sundays are usually almost never a good day for me. What about Wednesdays? Gosh, I gotta go. Oh, you know, uh, you discover, and I believe that the way that and people can, you're welcome to disagree and say, no, this is not my path. But what I look at is I've got someone like Kathy and my partner too, that I can say, look, I'm noticing that I am making up stories about to this person rather than giving them my truth. And this is what I think is the repercussions if I were to have told them in this situation that, um, yeah, I, I, uh, it's just not my yes. I'd rather stay home and sleep. Um, that, that, and they can check in with me and see whether I'm actually on the right track or whether that's my own fear.
And one way
Um,
I found
mhm.
with people that are minor, like if I'm not saying do this with a full out bully, but and maybe it will work. But if I notice someone kind of has maybe they have an unconscious tick where they kind of come back at me if I say no, I can say, I know there's something I'd like to talk to you about, and I'm afraid that you'll do XYZ if I do that. So I've already called it out. And if they do XYZ, it's really hard for them to ignore it. So, I'd really like to talk to you about our getting together on Sunday. I've noticed, I'm worrying myself that you'll be angry with me and, kind of pout a little bit and make me I'll feel bad. So I don't want to really tell you, but I'm feeling like Sunday I'm just it's been a really busy week and I really like to change, I'd like to see you or I don't want to see you anymore or can we change the date? Like whatever it is, if you acknowledge what you're afraid of them doing with a certain group of people, can be really helpful. They may not be even aware they're doing that. And I like sometimes I've done things like, well, be really I do it. I guess I kind of do an Adira like when I'm really disappointed. And I have one friend that just can't handle that. He's like, oh, I feel like I have to do what you want. And I'm like, I'm just feeling my feelings. I'm not trying to change you. But he's like, oh, whenever you do that, I have to do whatever you want. You're manipulating me. And I'm like, okay. So I've learned with him, I just can't do like Adira is so lovely. So you want to give in to her because she just goes, or she kind of collapses and a little like she's so sad, but she's just feeling her feelings. Um, I think that one really important thing someone asked about what's the difference between cajoling, and what was the other word?
Coercion.
Coercion. They're different branches of the same thing. So if cajoling is if Rick and I are supposed to go out for ice cream, he decides it's too cold, he would like to stay in and have hot cocoa, and I really want to go out for ice cream. I can pout like, "Oh, come on, please, 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 I really wanna do that. I did this for you. Come on, or, it'll be really fun. You can have a hot fudge, or you can have a hot cocoa while you have it." Like, that's not listening to his no, that's cajoling. Coercion is like, "You owe me, dude. You promised. You're gonna break," like, there's kind of a more, we might associate that with more with bullying, but they're both a form of bullying. It's different than saying, "Hey, dude, I get that you're a no to ice cream. can I ask you and check in? Is there to see if there's some options that might work for both of us? Because I'm really feeling the ice cream thing with you. So, like, can I ask you? I can get his permission. He might be like, no, I'm just a hell no to ice cream. And then I get to be quiet with him and go tap or deal with my stuff. If he says, sure, I'm like, what if I went out and got the ice cream and brought it back and we sat by the fireplace in your house and I tuck you in with a blanket and then, would you like ice cream then? And if he's like, no, I have to I'm open to other ideas, but otherwise I have to find some other way to take care of myself around that. So there's a difference between asking for clarity or if there's options. But if we keep doing that, if we keep going down option trail, sometimes we're being a little coercive, if that makes sense. If we won't,
Right, which goes into if we as emotional practitioners of the skill, if somebody asks me something and they start into, I can tell their enthusiasm is really like they really want this to happen. Yeah, that sounds so tiring. Someone, yeah, it is tiring to have to engage that way. And, there are really enthusiastic people. I think the world would be pretty flat if there weren't people whose enthusiasm can carry people to do things that they sort of want to do, or maybe they didn't want to do. And then once they get into it, they're like, wow,
it's fun.
this is amazing. This is life changing. I don't want to go to Tony Robbins. No, you'll have a great time. Come with me. Grab you by the arm, bring you, and the next thing, you're standing up on the seat with everybody, and
It's like that.
you
I
know,
can't.
you know, there. That's where part of the skill is. If I leave myself without a pause, like, okay, I hear your enthusiasm. I need a moment. What's my yes? What would be a yes? And if we can say what our yes is, then we are giving them more enough information that we can also like, look, this is a yes for me, and I'm not feeling like anything else is open for negotiation. If that's not a yes for you, namaste. And um, you know, um, I think we could do a whole like 2-week workshop on is seducing someone also bullying. Um, I will say that I want to live in a world that if somebody says no, says, "Look, I am not interested in sex," that no would be radioactive enough that its half-life would be at least 4 hours, right? With no pressure, seduction, intention to work around that. That's the world as somebody who um, has experienced sexual trauma, that really is important. Like that's 1,000 times more important to me. um, that a no really is that. Now, I believe that, and Kathy and many of the other teachers, I've heard people talk about seduction. So, for example, if you said, "Hey, do you like being seduced?" Hmm. So,
Consensual seduction is
so,
fine.
so if your word no doesn't actually mean no, what is your no?
Mhm.
Oh, applesauce. So if you say applesauce, we're done for the next, until the next day, right? Like, um, and so that can allow people to be in play.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm really big on safer interactions, and
But it
I
should be
believe that. Go ahead.
I think it's important. Like if you're someone who loves that seduction where you're like, no, 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 a lot of us were acculturated to it. And unfortunately, a lot of people, especially male identified folks, have been taught that you must push past seduction, like that, no, 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 like you have to seduce people. I think that having this, like sitting down and saying, hey, how do you like to be? Like, what is a yes for you? How would I know if it's a no? I love a lot of people that play in kink, but also in just this like kind of a power dynamic thing. It's you have an orange light and a red light. So your red light is the applesauce. Everything stops. Maybe your orange light is peanut butter. That means like, hey, you're kind of pushing on the edges of my boundary. You need to pull back a little. But it's consciously discussed and worked through. And when you were talking about that, I think if I'm trying to seduce someone and I'm only focusing on my own needs,
Mm.
or if I'm trying to interact with someone and find a yes, and a lot of people have been how to win at any argument, like whatever, I'm just thinking about me. And that can be coercive or cajoling or non-consensual. If I'm thinking about the relationship and both people, like I like New Culture talks a lot about what is the health of the relationship between us, almost as if it's a
Yeah.
third entity. Like if I'm also thinking about the well-being of our relationship and that other person, that changes the energy of it. And it's not just about, hey, I want to get my rocks off. I'm caring about this person and wanting to deepen the relationship. I want us both to have a good experience. I think that applies for all of this. So if I'm trying to find a yes, and I'm also in that space of I can pay attention to our relationship and the other person, that matters too. Asking a few questions to try to find out how we can best go forward is lovely. But if I'm just trying to win the argument and get the other person to do what I want so my rocks get off, so to speak, that's not going to be a good, like it's not a consensual and mutual way. It's not how I would choose to interact,
Oh, even though it's hard to say no,
even though it's hard to say no.
it's hard not to say no.
And it's hard not to say no,
Even though it's been hard to say no,
even though it's been hard to say no.
it's been really hard when I haven't said no.
It's been really hard when I haven't said no.
I want my clarity.
I want my clarity.
I want my no.
I want my no.
And I want to know what's a yes for me,
And I want to know it's a yes for me
up in the head, and for them,
and for them.
eyebrow. But they're not allowed to say no.
They're not allowed to say no.
Side of the eye. Oh, yes, they are.
Oh, yes, they are.
Side of the eye. I'm not allowed to say no.
I'm not allowed to say no.
That means all kinds of things.
That means all kinds of
Jen,
things.
they're not allowed to say no.
They're not allowed to say no.
It means all kinds of things.
That means all kinds of things.
Hold on. None of it's good.
None of it's good.
They are. I'm clearing out those old patterns,
I'm clearing out those old patterns,
tap by tap,
tap by tap.
uphead. Is no a good thing?
Is no a good thing?
And this is the question that I remember a client that didn't make it past like 10 minutes with me. They felt that certain people have to be obligated, and that no is not good. It is a sign that the relationship is on extremely dangerous ground. And I actually got that. Like in their world, obligation are the ties that bind.
Yeah.
We recognize who has the authority to ask, demand, politely, kindly, would you get me a glass of water, please, sweetheart?
It's really the
No is not an option,
Yeah.
right? It's like, yeah, good luck if you said no. The obligation to do that was fundamental to the structure that they wanted of their we space. I cannot thrive in that kind of structure. I can thrive in a structure where I can't imagine saying no 99.9% of the time. Of course, I'm going to get a water. And the difference of it being
the optional.
if I ask my partner, would you get me a water? and they said no. That is sign actually for me in my space that there's deep trust. Now, if it's no, get your own damn water, that's a sign that we've got a problem. Or they, they're just in a really bad space, but that's something we would clean up. Um, to me, if if there's no if there's an absence of no in the requests and things going on, it's not actually a sign of well-being. I I until someone says no to me about something that they know matters to me, I don't actually feel like we are as close. That's a threshold. Um, my so this is where answering, and I suspect the people that no is not the freedom word. No is like toxic waste in a relationship. For
The
me,
rejection, a lot of people take it as rejection, that you
well,
don't love
that's where we were. Well, I was hopefully starting to introduce in the tapping. It, what does no mean to you? If no is a healthy word, if no starts, you start putting energy into no is good. I want to be able to say no. I want the people that love me. If we've kissed 10,000 times and I say, hey, you want to kiss? And they say no, I want to be like, yes,
you spoke
there
out.
it
You
is.
trusted me enough to say the truth.
No, if it's no, 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 well, we've got a change in the relationship, at least related to kissing. But a no that flows into the relationship, to me is a good thing. Now, as soon as I do that, when I hear no, I will be coping with my reaction. Okay.
And
This
you do get to
particularly
have
applies to
reaction.
me. Yeah. As a parent, um, when the boy says no, there's a part of me that goes right back to like, I need to teach him how painful that is going to be in the world because no, when I was 8 years old would have meant, and that's my reaction. I've tapped on it. It's gone from like a guttural scream inside of my core, like, no, boy, little, 8-year-old boys don't get to say no, um, to like, oh, I really don't like that. Um, and so by lowering the intensity of our reaction, we're also freeing up everyone connected to us. I start saying things like, hey, buddy, um, would you be willing to take out the recycling sometime in the next half hour? And no is okay. If I say that, I've already I've already pre-framed it.
Yeah.
Like, and he says, no, I'm working on my Pokemon cards. Okay, I'll do it. Wow. And no is okay. And no is
Yeah.
good.
And you
And
got
no
to
is
practice
fine.
asking for what you wanted and you gave him a chance to practice. I think that's really lovely.
Yeah, would you be willing to watch your sister while I do the soup? And no is okay. Um, I just need to know.
I can't imagine hearing that as a kid. Like, I would love to have heard.
No, because that was I was raised in a parental hierarchy, a strict parental hierarchy, where respecting your elders was the thing. Um, I that's that's not my model, even though I'm still reactive when that's not happening. When I see a kid sass back their parent, there's a part of me that gutturally goes, something is about to happen. Sometimes it does, you watch what is unfolding. Um,
I think it's okay to ask for respect too. And so that the tone, like whether someone's bullying or being sassy back, I'm still a work in progress, but I'll be like, huh, I'm noticing hearing your tone, I feel a little tense. I'm judging that you're really trying to push me to do this. Or it's like whatever it is. Like, I don't feel really respected by the way you're speaking to me. And like, I let them know that there's something about their tone that's causing a reaction in me. And maybe, sometimes it's just I'm in a bad mood and I'm just picking things up, but sometimes it's like they may not even realize how strong their tone is. And I think when we have the courage, and I'm not saying do this with everyone, do it where it's right for you, but practicing building that muscle or like kind of calling things out. I don't, yeah, I'm not really enjoying your tone when you're speaking about this. And it makes me not want to try to find a solution. I just want to be defensive and back away. Um, just sharing the truth that can be hard for people to hear, but also really useful.
We're going to take a 7-minute break. Um, we're going to pause the recording. And if you're watching the replay, hi, we invite you to pause here and let things settle, see what's coming up for you. And when we come back, I'd like to hear, we do not have to go the full 90 minutes, and you don't even have to come back from the break if that's not your yes. If there are things that are specifically coming up for you, I would love to do a series of tapping rounds for all of us, but I would want them to be guided by some feedback from those of you that are here live. So, welcome back. So I have something that a nuance that came up for me, but is there something that is alive for you, Kathy, with what we've explored so
Hear your
far?
nuance and we can build off of that if as it works.
Yeah. So the other day, I'm really needing to go for a walk. I've got my shoes on, I've got my jacket on, and the request was made. Would you get the boy ready because he can go to a friend's house? And here's how it played out in my nervous system. And it's one of those things that I believe if we're developing a skill, it's useful to notice when the skill is strengthening. So the first thing that I felt inside me was no, that is not what me space Rick wants to do. And I could feel, I actually could say no here. It would have repercussions, but nothing, not going to harm the relationship. And then in that pause of freedom, there was a sense of what's really right for me here. And I could feel actually getting a boost of spiritual energy, for lack of a better, that's the sense of it for me, is like this inwelling of energy, of capacity, which I didn't have, which I was going to get on my walk. And if I had felt trapped, like I couldn't say no, I would not have been boosted by that. I would have been like, fine.
Does that meant the like
Yeah,
resist?
I would have been
I feel resistance.
contracted. I
Yeah.
would have been in my primitive brain feeling trapped, but doing something anyway. Instead, I felt this inflow of capacity because I knew it was a few minutes. And I said, yeah, I can do that.
But you had to give yourself permission to notice your no first.
The no was a truthful for me, just as a humanoid in that moment. It was a no. I could have said no, freedom. So what's now my yes? Oh, it matters to me. It matters to me that the kids get to play with their friends. It matters to me that, um, that I like ease. I like the fact that I have the freedom to go for a walk. It's not time constrained. Like it's not like I'm going to miss out. That if it's like, oh, there was actually an embrace of the flexibility. I've I've crafted a lot of flexibility into my life to be responsive to the changing dynamics. Um, it surprised me how much energy I got in the this is a no. I could say no, And now what? It could have been that I said no, but by going through that, I was free for spirit to give me options. I could have negotiated something a little different. I could have said, well, I'll get this thing ready and then I'm going to go for my walk. I'm not going to wait here until they arrive. Yeah. So,
I think that's really powerful. And one of the things, I think we get energy from being with our truth. Like sometimes it's scary, sometimes it's challenging. Like there are times when I'm with my truth and it's psychically draining, but in the long run, it gives me energy. And sometimes if there's mixed feelings, like I should go to the doctor and I also don't want to go to the doctor or whatever. If I give myself the space to, like, if I have time, especially if I have a little support, whether in the center or calling someone, and like, part of me wants to go. I've canceled 3 times already, but I really, and I really should go. And I want to just really process my no and see what I come up with. Like,
yeah.
what's coming up? No, no. And then sometimes I'll just yell at the mirror like a little kid. No, 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 no. You can't make me or whatever. Um, and sometimes that makes me get off the mirror a little bit, depending on how much I don't want to do something.
I'm
But
not the
sometimes
only one who does it.
no, you're not. But sometimes if I clear that energy, I'll find, like, if I've given it space, I can find, and I'm not talking about overriding your guidance. I'm not talking about overriding something that's very clear, but sometimes it's a yes and. I really want to go out with my friends and I really don't want to go out with my friends. I really feel like I promised this thing and I said I would do it and I'm having trouble doing it. Can I give some space to the part of me that really is resistant, or to both, whatever's coming up? Can I just acknowledge them and feel them in my body, maybe do some tapping? Sometimes I'm surprised at how quickly it moves.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So going back to the primal reaction, the panic reaction. So someone shared as a kid, no was never an option because my brother and I were always threatened with being thrown out on the streets, where my natural conclusion was death. No equals death to me. So in the skill building here, it's like, okay, how true was it to me at that age, whatever age comes to you, where this was really very clear, wise being figured this out. No is death, not something we're going to say. How true did it feel? No is death back then. Okay, well, maybe that's a 10. And then check in, look at your hands now, feel your body. I
Yeah.
have, I am an adult with a different space, and they're not actually going to toss me out on the street. They don't have that power over me. How true does it still feel in my, well, I'm not even talking just about my thinking part. How true does it feel in my body? No is death. It may be a 9.5. Like wherever it is, that's your skill starting point. And every little increment that you shift, that you can palpably feel more free in your body. And this is how I would do it, even though no was deaf back then.
Even though no was death back
I
then.
was smart enough to figure that out.
I was smart enough to figure that out.
They threatened to toss us out.
They threatened to toss us out.
No would have meant death.
No would have meant death.
And I accept that that was my truth.
And I accept that that was my truth.
Is it still true for me now?
Is it still true for me now?
Even though no was death.
Even though no was death.
And with some people, it might still be.
And with some people, it still might be.
Is that really my life right now?
Is that really my life right now?
Now, if it is, I pray for you to get support and help to be around less violent people and less threatening people.
Mm.
I'm going to assume that things have changed at least a bit.
Mm.
Things are a bit different.
Things are a bit different.
Eyebrow. I don't feel that as strongly in my gut.
I don't feel that as strongly in my gut.
Side of the eye. I felt the terror in my core
I felt the terror in my
under the
core.
eye. When I think of saying no now,
When I think of saying no, no,
under the nose, part of me still says no.
a part of me still says, no,
No, it's bad.
no, it's down. No, no, no.
Although, yeah, I hear those echoes,
I do hear those echoes.
and I feel those echoes
I feel those echoes.
of that, and I want to be grounded in what life is like for me here and now.
I want to be grounded in what life is like for me here and now. And I want to reiterate what Rick said. If you're in a situation where there is physical danger for you saying no, there are a lot of helplines out there. There's ways to get support. We really hope that you have the courage to do that because it's very hard, I know, to emotionally and if not physically escape some of that. For the majority of people on these calls, it may feel like that's real. Our survival brain does it. There is I believe it's inherited, like genetically level. Like we understand in a hierarchical community that the alpha could actually kill us and probably get away with it, depending on how toxic the community is. There is a like, oh, I can't go against that person. And recognizing the access we have, the ability we have, and the different communities we have access to now could really make a difference. So, like, if I'm working at a company, I'm not, this is just hypothetical. If I worked at a company where there was a very toxic boss that was really haranguing me and making me feel awful, I could look for a different job in that company. I could look for a different company. I have options that when we're in primitive brain, we don't always see. And I think one of the goals, the real skills workshop is about learning when we do have the ability to change something and finding the courage and the wherewithal to change it for a better, discerning that, oh, this is pretty toxic. Should I speak up to that boss? Should I go to HR? Should I find a different job? Like, what are my options and which ones feel like the next best step for me? I think that's half of what life is about. So just noticing the power that you do have, the ability to change things.
Um, and people are on a developmental spectrum and a personality spectrum, and I already touched on the fact that some people saying no means that you are committing a crime against the obligations that are part of your relationship. Um, there are people out there, and we do signal that we're okay with a no.
Mhm.
So, for example, I intentionally structure my business, even though there might be a financial cost at times. Um, if somebody starts a session and they want to cancel, they can. There's no punishment. If you want to cancel in the last minute, you can. You can you can show up for this and leave. You can, and nobody's going to be offended. You can like I practice no. Think about the people in your life who feel on the safety scale like pretty safe, and you can do things like, hey, how do you feel when people say no to you?
I think signaling that that's good. I have a 24-hour cancellation policy. I work normally full time as well. So it's okay to have boundaries. That doesn't mean that you're not no.
My yeah, that this is just my choice.
Right. I just wanted to
Right.
emphasize that just
Yeah,
because you have a
thank you.
boundary doesn't mean that you're not. There can be you can set up clear consequences without being, hey, I'm not. And often if I've been working with someone for a while and they're having a bad day, I don't mind once in a while, but new clients, I want to set that boundary because I want to take care of my time too. It's pretty
Sure.
precious.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Yeah, there was one example.
Right.
Um,
Right.
I think the stronger example, like if somebody likes being an authority power, those are not the people I practiced with first. Okay. They are still people. If someone thinks that they have authority over me, I'm more likely to use my exit. Um, but this is a skill, and it really calls out to be practiced so that you can say like no as a complete sentence. No, period. There are places and workshops where you can do that. Cuddle parties, for example,
Yeah.
is a workshop that it it is a cuddle party, but it starts with a workshop where the no game is a part of every single one because we want to normalize uh, people hearing and saying no. Uh, it changes a space when people have practiced that. It changes a friendship. Um,
Yes.
I ask new friends, say, hey, if I asked you to do something and you could tell that I really, really was excited and wanted you to join me, how hard would you find it to say no to me? And and I will say that it's getting better. And a lot of times I'm met with silence. And that's that's a starting point for a conversation because I'll I will say, look, it's really important for me to feel safe that I can say no. And it really helps me feel safe when I know that you can say no. How can we make this easier? Like, um, would you tattoo Rick on your forehead? Or Rick is awesome on your forehead? And usually when you throw something absurd in there, they go, no, great. That's a start.
Yeah, if they really hesitate, you can tell there's probably a lot of conditioning and culturation there that you may have to work through.
So it's one way that you can also set the tone that I am going to say no in our relationship, and it's important to me for my safety, for cultivating the kind of relationships I want to have. You start that, and you can do that with someone new. You can do that with somebody that you want to consider taking the relationship
Yeah.
to the next level. You start adding in like and please no is a perfectly wonderful answer when you ask someone to do something because that starts freeing them to say no. And then you'll start noticing that people will be like, no, I wish I could, but I just don't have the money to do that right. You know, they'll try to explain it away and you say, hey, thanks for taking care of yourself. I I appreciate you telling me no.
I think it's
Um,
really useful to like one of the things we teach in Cuddle Party. Oh, do you want to finish your thought?
no, go ahead.
Great. One of the things that we teach in Cuddle Party is no as a complete sentence. Often, if we try to explain it, like if I'm like, "Hey, Rick, would you take me to the airport tomorrow at 4:30 in the morning?" And Rick's like, "Oh, I really don't want to do that. Let me make an explanation." Like, "Oh, yeah, my car's not working really well. Maybe I shouldn't." I'm like, "No problem. You can use my car." And now he's trapped. So when we try to explain our no's, often we kind of put ourselves in a corner unless are looking for a way to find a yes that is a mutual yes. Like, hey, I'm really short on money right now. If you're willing to give me some gas money, I'm glad to take you. Or, or if sure, if you'll take me, like there could be a quid pro quo. As long as it's stated upfront and is clear, there's nothing wrong with that. Um, but when we try to explain our no's, sometimes the other person will solve them for us and then we can be trapped versus, I'm just not feeling the yes to this. So
Mm.
it's important to judge, like, am I looking for a way to negotiate, like kind of figure out a mutual shift, or am I just like, I don't want to do this? So if you can practice, and I practiced with my cat for a long time and she just did not care at all. Um, but I
I
had to just like,
remember.
yeah, she just look at me like, whatever, whatever. Um, but like I practice in the mirror, I practice with my cat. I had a lunch date with a friend and I'm like, I'm gonna practice my no's. So everything you ask me, I'm gonna be a no first, and then we can say I'd like to change my mind. But getting those muscles built up is a really powerful thing. So if you're not wanting to negotiate or look for a different solution, I encourage you if you can, you don't need to give an explanation for your no.
Yeah.
You just I've really felt I love Rick will say I felt into this prayerfully and I'm a no. And that, I feel like oh, you care. You thought about it really hard. That's sweet. So I kind of like that answer.
Someone said, I find it annoying when I tell someone no and they demand to know why I don't want to. Um, there, someone can be a bully it also can be that someone's not used to this.
Yeah.
And
Even cool people, if they're not used to you saying no
they
and
may
holding
think
back.
that you're saying no to them as a friend or as a person or someone that um, that you want to spend time with. It may be true. So if it's someone I really don't, I'm not investing into a relationship with them, I'll say, "Oh, yeah, it's for secret reasons." No, why aren't you coming? It secret.
Like to them start out first,
SECRET,
it's
secret,
personal, and if they push, I love it.
personal.
Secret.
Yeah, yeah, personal reasons, secret reasons. You come up with something that feels like it works well for someone who really is
I
not
could kill you, but then I'd have to kill you. So
yeah, there you go. Um, uh, Another thing is, um, if it's somebody that I do enjoy spending time with, I'll I'll say something like, "I I love spending time with you, and I this doesn't feel like a yes." So notice the difference between it just not I'm not feeling the yes in it, this specific experience or
versus you as
this
a person.
invitation. This invitation is not feeling like a yes to me. And I'll put my hand over my heart if I'm in, and um, that is another again. Like I'm clear. This it's not a no. It's a no to go and do this, but I'm not a no to the broader relationship. I want to be able to deflect bullies and things like that, and also let in without. And as someone said, I find myself, having to explain. Um, yeah, and if you say secret reasons would make them more curious, you wink at them and say, "Yeah, secret reasons."
Well, and I also like to see if people are going to respect my privacy. Like if I don't feel like explaining it, I might tell them another time, or like maybe I don't want to tell them. Um, my friends respect. I mean, I don't think there's much I haven't told Rick. Maybe just because I haven't thought of it, but there might be a time when I'm just like, I don't want to talk about it right now. Just I just want to, and I can't imagine he would ever say anything. But I'm here if you want to share.
Mm,
So like again, we're training the people around us how to treat us. So if you have long-standing relationships and you start shifting it, I really encourage you, especially if they're people you trust, to tell them what's going on. Hey, listen, I grew up without a no. I'm really working on my no. I'd love your help. If you feel it's authentic, if I say no to you, could you encourage me and appreciate me because I'm trusting you enough to share my no. And when you're telling things like that, that really helps them understand where versus a sudden shift or like, is something wrong? Did I do something wrong? We've always done it this way. And they might get on board and it might be good for them too. And I do think it's also important to remember that when we first start working a muscle, it feels really hard. And our brain will think that it's always going to be this hard, and it will not be this hard. I used to not be able to say no at all. It comes out really comfortably for me now. It took some work. I had to go to the gym and, practice on my cat in the mirror and Rick and people I trusted and kind of slowly expand that. But it's really lovely. I have a lot more freedom in my life and a lot more ease. And I used to do almost everything out of obligation. Like my life was swimming in obligations, jumping from one thing I said I'd do to another thing, or kind of guessing what other people wanted and doing it so that I didn't, gave me a little freedom if I got ahead of them. Versus, hey, what do I want today? What do I need today? Or right in this moment.
So thank you for being here and exploring this. We've had a couple of other things like the hard time saying no to appointments and commitments. What you can discover is, for example, that no, it is not. I never make an appointment or commitment that doesn't have an exit. And if somebody like if it costs me, if I know that it's going to cost me $1,000 whether I show up or not, that's okay. But I can still say no to it.
You understand the consequences.
I want to make, like this is if you schedule with Kathy, what she said is 24 hours notice. You know that there are consequences. You may not you may not those consequences may not work for you if if I have again, you're exploring, how do I feel more free here? Hard time saying no is made easier if we tend to the we space. So, for example, if it's a 24-hour cancellation and I notice that my life is feeling kind of chaotic, it's not feeling in my body like, you know, it's the chance of me being available tomorrow for this session with Kathy is small. I'm going to cancel now at the 24-hour point because she said that works for her. You start asking people, well, what works for you if plans need to change?
Yeah.
Oh
I like
no, like if we get these tickets, we're going. I say, I hope you have a great time. That never works for me. Someone said that they use the expression that's not good for me. That's another way of saying it. Like, um, yeah, it never works for me to to harm our relationship if for a multitude of possibilities, um, it's not a yes for me to go at the time of the concert or the time of, the trip. So those are things that I talk about as awkward as it can be. Um, and again, like workplace cultures where I don't work in workplaces where I don't have an option to set boundaries. Um, and I think we've gotten a lot better in my lifetime. You can set sexual boundaries in workplaces. It's
yeah.
even
Oh, we
supported by
couldn't. Yeah.
law. There's laws related to abuse, physical abuse, working conditions. We do have boundaries. Extend the ones that are important and make sure that those are a part of the landscape, maybe even part of the agreement. That's works for me. I have multiple streams of effort, um, and I'm self-employed now. But even when I was working for someone, I made it very clear, um, the things that I needed in order to to be, there. So
I
again,
like
go ahead.
noticing my where because I work in corporate, I will
Yeah,
often try to notice where I do have choice. Because not like if there's an urgent meeting, I have to get that thing done. But often I have the option to go get a coffee or take a walk first. Do this, like maybe I'll do this project for a half hour. I'm going to switch. I notice the choice I do have and kind of feel into my yes. And that often, if I think I just have to do exactly what they told me in whatever order, it's very rigid. I don't feel good. But if like, oh, I can go take a 5-minute walk, say hi to someone, get some coffee, and I'm going to sit down and I'm going to notice which of the 3 projects that needs to get done draws me forward. And I'm going to
yes,
like choose what part of that to work on. And then I'm going to stick after half an hour, I might, take another break and just check in on like it gives me more freedom, more choice, and then I feel less trapped.
exactly. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you all.
Really love this talk too, and everything everybody shared.
Mhm. All right. We continue emotional resilience and the like coming soon.
Mm,
So, all
way to
right.
rock it.
See y'all later. Bye.
Bye, everyone.